Hi everyone, welcome back to Newegg TV. My name is Paul and this is the Arc Midi mid-tower computer case from Fractal Design. The Arc Midi features a minimalist design. It is a mid-tower case, so it will support ATX, Micro-ATX, and Mini-ITX motherboards. It is a black case, obviously. It has a, this is actually a plastic front bezel, but it does have a brushed aluminum look. So the plastic does keep the cost of the case down, but the look still represents that same brushed aluminum that you see in a lot of cases. And I will say that it tends to pick up much fewer fingerprints than a lot of the brushed aluminum actual metal front bezels that I've seen. On the left side here, on the left side here you can see there is a mounting space for both a 140mm, a 180mm fan if you want to do an intake there onto your video cards. In the back here, we have a 140mm pre-mounted exhaust fan, have a couple grommets there for routing water cooling hoses or cables. It has a knockout here for your input-output shield. We have 2, 4, 6, 7 plus 1 PCI slots, so you get one off here to the side. That's a great space for example, the included fan controller knob that I'll show you once we get to the accessories. They've used black thumb screws for all of your attachments here for the side panels as well as the top panel that's also removable. Power supply mounts down there at the bottom, and it also has a removable filter for the power supply intake. It's going to take a look at the right side of the case here for your cable management area. Here is your cable management area. You have 25mm of space back here between the motherboard tray and the side panel to route your cables. They have, as you can see, fully painted the interior of the case for a nice clean look overall. You got a good size cutout here for a CPU backplate, so if you're using an aftermarket heatsink fan, you can easily pop that on through that backplate. You have cable tie-down points all along the side here, so you can keep your cables cinched down nice and tight. You got a large grommet up here at the top, another large grommet here in the middle, and finally one more down here at the bottom for routing your power and data cables from your power supply and your motherboard. Up here you can see some cables from the front panel that have already been routed down here through this grommet. And over here on the left side you can see the business end of our 3.5-inch drive trays. Here's a look at the bottom of the case. You can see there's some heavy casters here for the case to rest on. They are rubberized, so you will get less vibration, less noise, and also prevent damage to the surface or desktop that you have your case sitting on. Also here is a very large removable dust filter, and that goes over the intake for your power supply here as well as the optional cooling fan that you can mount right there. And back up here at the top of the case so I can show you guys the removable top panel. It easily pops off, mounts with a couple thumb screws there at the back, and it's got a honeycomb mesh all across the top of the case as well as a foam dust filter to make sure you can have air passing through, but it will catch that dust. You can easily remove that to clean it off. Here at the top, and the reason that there is so much mesh and airflow options is because Fractal is providing a ton of options here for cooling as well as for water cooling if you're into the whole water cooling thing. So you'll notice you got 3 areas here, all with the honeycomb mesh on it. You can have your standard types of fans mounted here. For instance, there's a 140mm fan that comes pre-mounted. You can fit another of those here and another up here at the front. The front can also house a 120mm fan. And then this area here, you can actually mount a dual 120 or 240mm radiator. They've actually moved that towards the left side of the case to keep it a little bit further away from your motherboard and components that will be on the motherboard tray that's over here, and give you a little bit more clearance there if you're mounting a 120 or 240mm radiator underneath that. Finally, you have these 4 wider spaced mounting holes here, and that will allow you to attach up to a 180mm fan. Up here on the top of the front bezel, you can see all of your inputs, outputs, and buttons. So you have a reset button, you got a mic and headphone jack right there, you got a power button with a power indicator light, 2 USB 2.0 ports, and a USB 3.0 port that connects via a 20-pin internal header. Also up here on the front of the case, you have this aforementioned plastic front bezel. But fortunately, this front bezel, if I can get a grip on it, pops off quite easily, and you'll notice again honeycomb mesh with the foam filter right there behind it. So you're going to have your air intakes most likely up here at the front of the case. Also you have your 5¼ bays, of course. Behind here you can see they have pre-mounted a 140mm fan. It has a braided cable as well as a 3-pin fan header to plug into your power supply or your motherboard. Right here you can see that there's gaps, and that's for the 140mm fan that's pre-installed. You can also drop another one in right here, and that will allow you to provide a direct channel. Now remember where this fan is, because right here is a hard drive cage. That's reconfigurable, I'll show you that in a second, to provide a steady open channel of air to go straight back to your video cards. Also up here at the top, in one of your 5 1/4 inch bays, they have a 3.5 inch bay, and there's a bracket that's also inside that dock that's pre-installed, so you can do a 3.5 inch USB card reader, for example, right up there at the front. And finally, onto the good stuff. Here is the left side panel of the case. Again, you have a gap there with some honeycomb mesh. You can leave that as a passive airflow, or you can mount a 140 or 180mm fan to that fan mount. And here's the interior of the case. We'll start up here at the back. You can see that 140mm Fractal fan. You can also see all of your white accented PCI slots. All of those are mounted with black thumb screws. Your fan here has a 3-pin fan header. Same thing with the fan at the top. Again, the braided cables. Pretty nice fans that Fractal has included here. There is the motherboard tray. Looking at it from this side, I already pointed out most of the stuff on there, so we'll move on to the power supply mount that is right down here at the bottom. It does have some rubberized feet that the power supply sits on, as well as some foam padding there at the back to reduce sound and vibration and keep your power supply from interrupting with noisiness. Here are your front panel connectors, and we have most of the typical front panel connectors that you would see in a case. For instance, your USB 2.0 connector, you have HD audio or AC97 audio connectors, and you also have your power switch, hard drive LED, reset switch, and power LED. And lastly, a very nice thing, we have a 20-pin USB 3.0 fan header, USB 3.0 header right there that you can plug directly into your motherboard. No loopback cables in this case. Up here at the top in the front, you can see your 5 1/4 inch bays. Right here, a couple thumb screws. That's because that 3.5 inch to 5 1/4 inch adapter I mentioned is already pre-mounted in there. You can remove those to remove that if you want to do 2 full-size optical drives. Below that, you can see all of your 3.5 inch drive trays. They all have a nice white accent, which gives it just a little pop inside the case. And all of these are actually secured in their little trays with a thumb screw, like that one over there. Once removed, you can slide the tray out easily. Thumb screw prevents the tray from moving around and keeps your hard drive nice and secure in there. And all of these drive trays have these little rubber mounting points for your hard drives. So if you have mechanical hard drives, you mount them from the bottom. Using these, there are 2 positions for each of those that you can see. So you can put them there, you can put them there to shift the drive forward or back depending on your preference. Also have 2.5 inch mounting points for laptop hard drives or SSDs. And you have a total of 8 of these trays for all of your storage needs. Now, if you remember when I was showing you guys the front of the case, I did mention one thing, and that was that this upper hard drive tray is not only removable but reconfigurable. So again, a couple thumb screws right there, and this tray pops out. It's got a couple little attachment points right there, so you can remove that entirely if you don't need it, and that will allow you to accommodate larger size video cards. With this hard drive cage in, you can fit video cards up to 290mm, 29 centimeters. With it out, you can fit video cards up to 470mm, which is really long. I don't know if they make them that long, but hey, if they do in the future, you will be all set. Now, if you don't need the space, but you do want the airflow, you can actually just rotate this 90 degrees, slide it back in just like that, and that will give you a bit less accessibility to the trays themselves, but it will provide a nice column or a little gap there for the air to flow straight through those rather than from the side. As you can see, there's a little bit more space, and just give you a little bit more air coming directly from that 140mm fan at the front of the case straight back to your video card, as well as your processor and all of your other components. While we're talking about size, I should also mention that the width of this case allows it to accommodate CPU aftermarket coolers up to 180mm in height. And let's finish off by going over the accessories that come along with the Arc Midi. You get a Arc Midi user's manual, well-written manual in a variety of different languages, so if English is not your first language, you probably have an option in there. You get a couple of heavy-duty zip ties. These are the kind with a little prong on the back that you can use to push and release it, so you can actually reuse these if you want to reconfigure your cable management. You get a 5 1/4 to 3.5 inch drive cover, and it does have that same brushed aluminum look that the rest of the front bezel has, so you will match nicely. And then you get this little Fractal fan controller here, which is a pretty simple fan controller. It's just a knob you can use to adjust your fan speeds. On the back here, you've got a power plug as well as an output for your fans. And then they've included a Molex Molex plug here to power the fan controller. And then you get a 3-pin fan controller to 3-pin fan controller. So you can control all 3 fans that come pre-installed in this case with that fan controller there. And the knob is extra long because if you remember this PCI slot I mentioned at the beginning, you can mount it right there. It fits nicely, and it's got that longer knob so it sticks out a little bit at the back of the case. So you can easily reach around there to control your fan speeds. And finally, you get a baggie of mostly black screws. You get some thumb screws in there also for mounting all of your drives and such, as well as your motherboard standoffs. And that's going to wrap it up for this video. Once again, this has been the Arc Midi mid-tower computer case by Fractal Design. I'm Paul with Newegg TV. If you enjoyed today's video, please head over to our Newegg YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe for more tech videos. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.